Hey there, and welcome back to Baldur's Gate 3. My name is Pete, and today we complete another episode of this honor mode walkthrough with our Dark Urge Halfling Bard, Sylvia Hairyfoot. Last time we left off after an encounter with 3 ogres led by Lump the Enlightened, who we convinced to work for us, and we also interrupted a pack of goblins who had tied the gnome Barkus root to the blades of a windmill. We avoided a fight, but had one a short while later as we barged in on a bugbear making love to an ogre, a fight in which we used our new ally Shovel and her scare ability. Now for today, as you can see, Shadowheart has taken Gale's spot in the party, but only temporarily and only for one short line of dialogue, but this is a completionist playthrough, I wouldn't want you to miss it. Speaking of missing things, last time we also missed an opportunity to use our Speak with Dead spell, so let's make up for that and talk to the dead Tiefling over where we met the ogres last episode.
The Tiefling's corpse stirs with the spell. You realize the Tiefling's body has been torn open by huge hands.
And well, while we already know who did this, let's ask her anyway. There is no need to save dialogue choices, we can ask all of them before the spell runs out.
Ogres, hungry, bloodied, screams.
Since we have no option to ask who she is, let's continue with the next best thing. Where is she from?
Elturel, Zoru, friend.
Right, she knows Zoru back in the Grove, so what drove her to this village then?
Strange warriors, gold, skin, silver blades.
Quick of foot, this one, to avoid Githyanki hunters.
Lae'zel adds some important context here, so let's find out more about those warriors and where to find them.
Mountains, road, gate.
Right, this updates Lae'zel's companion quest and leaves us with one last question. Any valuables nearby that we haven't found already?
True sight, no coin.
Right, not sure what she refers to here. The True Seeing spell is not in Baldur's Gate 3 as far as I know, but either way we have looted her already, so let's keep going. There is one more house in the village that we have not yet visited, and that's where we are now going. Now, you won't find a whole lot of value or interest in here, but in the southwestern corner there is a book talking about master weapons, and only one component is still missing. This triggers a quest to find and finish the masterwork weapon alongside 15 experience points. On the fireplace then, a letter from one of the locals, maybe even a person in a position of power, about strange riders called Hell Riders sent from Elturel. I'm not entirely sure whether or not it was already revealed who the Hell Riders are, but we will learn more about them as the game progresses. Picking up the selenite necklace on the table here then triggers a response from Shadowheart.
Which rubbish. How much time did some dim-witted artisan waste on that?
And that's pretty much all the important points of interest in the room taken care of. In the other room then, we find a giant web over a hole in the ground. Definitely do not want to step on that. Instead, we take note of several weapons and smithing equipment scattered around, as well as an old key on the chest here. Once collected, we can then head back out. There's a skeleton on the building's east side, and another key, a heavy one, a little further by the wall. The crates once again mostly contain smithing-related stuff or junk items. They can also be used to get up onto the roof here, where a bird's nest is located. Sadly, this one only contains a rotten axe. So, back down we go, past the goblin guards and towards the set of shabby wooden doors here, which we can open using the old key we just found. This gets us into a sparsely illuminated basement. A lever by the door can be used to relock and open it, but we are more interested in the contents of the various crates and sacks down here. Above all, this place is a fantastic supply of thieves' tools, which are often found scattered among the various blacksmithing items. There's also a note over here, an interview with a director who apparently made a deal with a devil to get his play on stage. A curious read, but not what we're after. Instead, let us pick up the trap disarm kit over by the other side of the entrance, and then head down the stairs. At the bottom we find a chest with some heavy weaponry. Around the corner, more thieves' tools in a barrel, and another set in the cupboard. The rest of the containers here contain nothing of value. We also take note of 2 boxes stacked on top of each other, and a broken section of wall above. We'll come back for this shortly. For now, let's move into the next room, a book on the ground by the bed here.
I've spotted a trap. Move with purpose.
As we take a peek inside, Lae'zel spots a trapped chest that we will take care of in just a second. First of all, we can find another set of thieves' tools in the crate here, as well as some weaponry in the trunks behind it. Then we switch to Astarion to pass the DC 10 sleight of hand check to disarm the trap. With a bonus of at least 10, that should not be any trouble for him. Right, so we're slowly approaching the point where rolls above 30 will occasionally happen. Let's see what we find inside. Okay, blueprints for 3 weapons, great sword, sickle and dagger, as well as emphasis on susu bark as an unusual ingredient.
Weapon blueprints. They call for susu bark. If only I knew where to find some.
We unfortunately fail the nature check and don't know where to find it, but we will come across it in our travels eventually. For now, let's take the ladder up to the next chest here. This one we can unlock with the heavy key we found earlier. Inside, a piece of infernal iron, some notes on the material stating that it will not melt or warp at standard smithing temperatures, and finally a steel-forged sword, essentially a +1 short sword. More weapons then in the trunk on the other side here, as well as a smoke powder barrel. Let's have Lae'zel take that one with her. Who knows what it might be good for. Then we drop back down and find the heart of the smithy. We can light up the furnace here and even use the bellows, but as you may have guessed already, without that susu bark there is nothing we can craft. So let us keep looking around.
What's this?
A cracked wall then catches our attention. We'll deal with that momentarily. First of all, let's clear out the rest of the room. Some more weapons and another set of thieves' tools in the corner over here. This workshop really is a solid source for items to sell. I doubt we're going to need the 20+ set of thieves' tools we already have, and weapons also fetch a few coins, so I recommend being thorough in here. Once the place has been picked clean, it's time to swap out some party members. Before we send Shadowheart back to camp though, let's take off the Amulet of Sylvanas, the Hunting Shortbow and the Safeguard Shield. All of these are items that we might need for what comes next. Then we swap her out for Will, who can first of all cast mage armor on himself, thanks to his Eldritch Invocation. Then Armor of Agathis, using his first spell slot. And finally, the 5 to 12 damage from the Pact-Bound Rapier are not enough. Let's have him summon the Shadow Blade instead. This now bumps his damage up to 4 to 18, but we can bind to this weapon as well, adding his charisma modifier to attack and damage rolls, and increasing its damage to up to 20 points with a single hit. And not only that, against enemies in dim light or darkness, Will now also gets advantage. Up next, we then swap out Astarion for Gale, but only for a little bit. No setup needed with him. We can get going now and use Will's Eldritch Blast to destroy the cracked wall. Force damage is perfect for this, as structures like these are vulnerable to it. What we find behind the wall then are the Whispering Depths, and it seems like we're not alone down here.
They'll alert their spinners with a mere touch.
Indeed, giant spiderwebs already give us a taste of what we might find. Needless to say, we don't want to cross that web bridge in front of us and alert them to our presence. Now, while there is a rock to climb down over here, the path below does not really offer any way forward. Sure, you could use a crate or something similar to climb back up on the other side of the web, but we don't want to enter from this side anyway, so let's head back into the smithy and into that room with the stacked crates below the broken wall. Now, any regular-sized character could climb up here and jump the rest of the way, but for Sylvia and for Shovel as well, we need to stack another crate on top of the two. Luckily, there's plenty of them around. Then we wait as the rest of the party catches up. Lae'zel can actually clear the entire gap just by jumping from the ground, and then we once again switch to Will, as there is another cracked wall up ahead. Sorry for making it a little bit difficult to see. From this side, we then head back into the Whispering Depths, more spiderwebs greet us, but this time the area we're in is much larger and offers more room to maneuver around them. So let's walk past the first web bridge on the left here and climb down the rocks behind it. As we do, we can also see that yes indeed, there are spiders in this cave, Phase Spiders. For now, let's stay out of their way, loot a backpack for some gold on the side here, and pick up more gear next to and from a skeleton, a bucket hanging right beside it that leads up into a well. That's the well in the village square, another way to get down here. Since we have no plans of returning to the surface just yet, let's keep going. There are some spider silk cocoons around that, just like the web bridges, we do not want to touch, otherwise the cave inhabitants would be alerted. Following the path leading southwest, we enter a small secluded cave with supplies and the remnants of what may have been a campsite. Several journals reveal more. The first just states that in her form I find ecstasy over and over, and that the spell is not enough. The rest of the pages are burnt. Then a bloody journal by the bedside reveals the name Eliette, a high elf seemingly intrigued by the Spider Queen Lolth, while she found herself captured by drow dark elves. A third web-covered journal speaks of refashioning herself in Lolth's image and becoming a matriarch of spiders, and finally the fourth journal mentions a pair of boots and an arachnomancer who Elliete killed in her ambition. Reading all of these journals also gives inspiration to Gale, and we can now help ourselves to the aforementioned boots, the spider step boots, a crucial piece of gear for this area as they make the wearer immune to being webbed and will also not alert anyone when touching spider webs with it. In the wicker chest on the side here then, some thematically fitting spell scrolls. We may eventually learn a few of them with Gale, but for now we put them into our inventory and take a quick glance at a ritual diagram, likely depicting Elliotte's transformation into a spider. And that's all there is, apart from some minor items, so it's time to change our party once more. Gale will take a seat again and Astarion rejoins us. Since combat is around the corner, Will gets Longstrider, and Astarion now receives the hunting shortbow, advantage and thus free sneak attacks against all monstrosity-type enemies. Needless to say, that's what we're about to encounter. Also, it lets him cast Hunter's Mark with one of his bonus actions for a small damage boost. Lae'zel also prepares by swapping out the Everburn Blade for the Vision of the Absolute Spear. Looks like a downgrade at first, but the spear deals an extra 2d6 damage against creatures with multiple sets of eyes, and also has a chance of blinding them. So effectively, 7 to 24 damage and potentially blinding. Against spiders, it very much makes sense to swap, I think. For ranged attacks, Lae'zel also gets Astarion's +1 crossbow, and she also equips these spider step boots. As our frontliner, unlimited mobility will be key, and she does get extra movement from the haste helmet too. Just to improve his saving throws a tiny bit, Will gets the safeguard shield, while Sylvia upgrades one of her scimitars to the steel-forged sword we found earlier, and with that we can take a short rest to replenish Will's spell slots and Lae'zel's superiority dice.
I'll feel that one later.
Finally, Will also equips the Amulet of Sylvanus for emergency restoration, but let's hope we don't need it. Then it's time for the ambush. Leaving the cave, we climb up some rocks onto a small platform from where we have a better view of the battlefields. Below us, 2 Phase Spiders are patrolling, and an Ettercap stands in their midst as well, a second one a bit further down. These will be the 4 enemies we need to take out in this encounter, and they all sport a decent number of hit points. let's get to work. With our party in position, all torches extinguished and everyone in stealth mode, we are now going to cast a minor illusion with Sylvia to draw the two spiders and the Ettercap close together. As soon as they have clustered, we enter turn-based mode and drop a cloud of daggers right on top of them, as well as on the cat that our spell has just created. Combat therefore begins, and we have a surprise round after dealing a total of 33 damage divided across all three enemies that we can now take a closer look at. The Phase Spiders are strong and mobile. An AC of 14 and 31 hit points is nothing too crazy though, but they are resistant to poison and have dark vision as well as the Web Walker feature, so they are not restricted by webbing. The Ettercaps, meanwhile, are a little meatier, but also easier to hit with an AC of 13. The main thing we want to note here is their infested condition, which they will spread to any melee attacker, so we best engage them from range. Additionally, they also get to multi-attack any creature caught in a web, another thing we should therefore try to avoid. As always though, the best defense is a good offense, and Sylvia still has a bonus action. Let's take an offhand crossbow shot against the Ettercap caught in our trap. The 80% hits for 7 damage, and we can now have Astarion join the fight. Let's cast Hunter's Mark on the Ettercap to add him to the initiative. Thankfully, he joins before our enemies, so we can keep going with a sneak attack right away. No need to hide again, the bow already gives him advantage. 20 damage, lovely, the cloud of daggers will take care of the rest. So since Astarion has just enough movement to get down there, let's use an offhand attack to strike one of the Phase Spiders next. He gets advantage on this too, but misses anyway. Time for Will to enter the fight. As long as the enemies are turned around, he can freely sneak up on them, and then join the initiative by casting Hex on the closest Phase Spider. It will now be a minute until he can complete his turn. Let's have Lae'zel go in the meantime. A menacing attack with the Spear of the Absolute could potentially deal pretty good damage. And indeed, 27 damage are enough to kill the Phase Spider. We gain 10 XP and can now end Sylvia's and Astarion's turns. The Ettercap succumbs to the cloud of daggers, and Will can now strike the other spider, sadly without the Hex bonus, but still with advantage as the enemy is in a shadow, and 16 points of damage is nothing to scoff at. This also means that the cloud of daggers has an easy time finishing off the spider, and just like that, after one turn of combat, we are down to a single enemy. Now, the Ettercap will most likely begin combat with a web attack. It's only a ranged attack, so let's present a target who is immune to it in Lae'zel. We move her up onto the stone pillar here and have her stay there. On the next turn then, we have the opportunity to strike from range, but the sidelines are a little messy here. Astarion cannot recast Hunter's Mark, but he can launch another ranged sneak attack. However, he misses his second 88%er and has to dash now to get back into safety. Let's hide as well, just to make sure he won't get targeted. Same issue, but worse than with Will. No line of sight here to cast either Hex or Eldritch Blast without moving way too close to the Ettercap, so let's have him join Astarion behind the pillar and hide as well. Finally, Sylvia is not even able to get into shooting range. That's the one downside of the hand crossbow. So same story for her. She joins Astarion and Will, but uses her bonus action to dip the crossbows in fire before also hiding. Then we end our turn and hope the plan works out. And there we go, lovely. The Ettercap spits its web, but Lae'zel could not care less. Then it also moves to the ground, giving Lae'zel the high ground attack bonus for another menacing attack. Those are of course possible from range too. 14 damage, and the Ettercap is now frightened, but that's not enough. Let's action surge and do the same thing again. "12 damage this time, leaving only 16 hit points. Doesn't matter that Astarion gets spotted here, he still gets advantage with the hunting shortbow, but let's cast Hunter's Mark first for a 1d6 damage boost. And this time he does not miss, and we complete the encounter, once again without taking a single point of damage, just the way I like it. As we now loot the bodies, we need to pay attention to the spider venom on the ground, that green surface. If we touch it, we could become poisoned and take damage, and that would be a shame after what we have just accomplished. In terms of loot, the spider silk cocoons, which we can now safely touch since all enemies are dead, are probably the most interesting. As far as I know, the items inside are mostly randomized, but there is a good chance you find something useful. Over where the second Ettercap stood, a dead goblin carries some alchemy ingredients, and there's also another cocoon nearby. From here we can then climb down some rocks to find plenty more. Several cocoons and backpacks are in this area, as well as 2 skeletons. One of them carries the spurred band, giving its wearer momentum if they begin their turn below half health. The more interesting item, however, is the apprentice's journal in the backpack here. This shows the person to be the apprentice of Elliete, who we learned about last time, and reveals that they were not in that role by choice. We also learn that Char's Dark Justiciars killed Elliete, freeing the apprentice of their master. The apprentice then decided to return the necromancy of Thay, allowing us to find it, and the book mentions a key gem, likely the way to actually open the necromancy, supposedly somewhere in these tunnels. An important bit of lore that updates the corresponding quest. Let's keep going. Up next, we destroy some of the cocoons on the walls. Those cannot be looted directly, but they can contain some minor valuables. Up on the web bridge here, close to Elliette's former quarters, there is another backpack that Lae'zel can grab for us. Inside, a ring and some gold. Over on the other side, we can now also look down the tunnel that leads to that very first web bridge we found after going through the other wall from the smithy cellar. There is nothing more of interest to be found down there, though. Back over by the dead spiders then, more cocoons hang from the ceiling, a few bits and bobs inside of them. All in all, I recommend you light up a few torches and take your time looting this area. There's lots of nooks and crannies, and the two-storied layout can be a little confusing, so go slowly and methodically to thoroughly loot everything. The valuables from all of these cocoons can make for a decent haul. The spider webs right in front of us here can also be destroyed, clearing the path to another outcropping overlooking an area that we have not yet been to, and we can see another phase spider patrolling in it, so another combat encounter is coming up. For a better starting position, though, let us advance in a western direction until we reach a rough rectangle of web bridges connecting several stone pillars. Here we not only discover a second Phase Spider, but also our boss for today, the Phase Spider Matriarch. This is apparently what the High Elf Eliette turned into, a monstrosity with 162 hit points and an AC of 17, by far our toughest enemy of the playthrough yet. Completely immune to poison, she also gets a legendary action, allowing her a free attack against anyone harming her offspring. And by offspring, the game does not mean the 2 Phase Spiders, but whatever's inside these eggs here, of which there are 3 clusters in the chamber. There is also an achievement for defeating the Matriarch before these eggs hatch. The easiest way to guarantee that we unlock that achievement is to destroy them beforehand. We use Lae'zel and her crossbow for this. The only important bit is to make sure that whoever you use has these spider step boots equipped, otherwise stepping onto the web bridges would once again immediately alert the spiders to our presence. The first batch can be easily taken out. For the second one, you need to time it just a little bit, as the Matriarch can see all the way down to the pillar that Lae'zel is standing on. So either memorize her route or just use a longer range attack. A longbow, for example, would do well here. The third clutch of axe is then down by the southwestern stone pillar on the ground. It can be sniped from up here. Once again, there is no risk getting detected. Once all eggs have been dealt with, we begin preparing for combat, and let me preface this by saying that figuring out the approach we're taking here took me about 5 hours, just so you know why my video output currently is what it is. In any case, it all begins by timing the Matriarch's patrols so that we can sneak Lae'zel up behind her, jump over to the other web bridge, and place the smoke powder barrel right in the middle of that bridge. Not too far over to the stone pillar on the right though, otherwise it will prevent the Matriarch from stepping back onto the web entirely, and we definitely don't want that. Once Lae'zel has made it back off the web, we take off the spider step boots and give them to Sylvia, and then we take a short rest to replenish some of the resources used in the previous fight. Up next, we want to move Astarion, Lae'zel, Will, and Shovel down one level. There is a spot between the two patrolling Phase Spiders here where neither one of them can see, and we will group all 4 of them closely together in that spot, so that they are in melee range when the fighting kicks off. Speaking of melee, Astarion also equips both the steel-forged sword and the +1 dagger we found last time. Sylvia won't need the sword, and Astarion will go melee only in this fight. Then begins the tricky bit. We first of all want to place a candle and light it, but we don't want to dip Sylvia's crossbows in it just yet. Instead, we want to wait for one particular moment, a moment when the Matriarch is about to turn around to return to the bridge with the smoke powder barrel. Before she does so, we want to cast Mirror Image once more to lure both Phase Spiders together. This can be a bit tricky if they are too far away from each other, but it is crucial for the plan to work. We then want to wait a few seconds until the spiders lose interest again and resume their patrols. The Matriarch is now where we want her to be, and the Phase Spiders are still close enough to register a mirror image cast on the web bridge over the big chasm in the middle of the room. As you can see, it may take more than one attempt to actually get both of them to move though, but try it too many times and the Matriarch might come to investigate, and she's a bit better at seeing through the illusion and could therefore initiate combat. Eventually though, after a bit of back and forth, it all works out. The neat side effect is also that this keeps the Matriarch in place near the barrel, and once everyone is where we want them to be, we can quickly dip Sylvia's weapons and then enter turn-based mode. Now, the order of events is absolutely crucial here. The first thing we actually want to do is to attack the Matriarch from stealth. Doesn't matter if the attack hits or not, but this will give us a surprise round. Doing any of the other things first will not. Now, we needed Sylvia's bonus action for this, that's why it's important to dip her weapons before entering combat, and can now use Slashing Flourish to A. attack the web below the 2 Phase Spiders, and B. blow up the smoke powder barrel. The extra fire damage is critical for both of those things to succeed. And there we go, the Phase Spiders are killed instantly as they drop into the hole, while the Matriarch suffers explosion and fall damage for a grand total of 60 points of damage, and that's actually on the lower side. I think she succeeded the save against the explosion. If she doesn't, this removes about half her health. Either way, she is now prone on the ground and surprised, and the rest of our party has not entered combat yet, so we are free to sneak up with Lae'zel here, and can also take all the time we need to light a candle and dip her weapon. With the extra 2d6 damage from her spear and menacing attack, we could do well over 30 points of damage here. Well, it's just 22 and the Matriarch also saves against being frightened, but she is blinded now and officially below half health. Let's add to the damage by sneaking up with Astarion. Once again, while not in the initiative, he can calmly dip both of his melee weapons and then enter combat by recasting Hunter's Mark for even more damage. With a lucky spot in the initiative, he can also go right away. let's strike with a sneak and an offhand attack. Lovely, that's 34 points of damage total. The important bit is now that we move Astarion a few steps away from the Matriarch again. She is surprised and thus won't strike with an opportunity attack. Then we move in with Will. The Shadow Blade can unfortunately not be dipped in fire, so let's reapply Hex to join the initiative. He is placed after the Matriarch, so we will have to complete Shovel's turn first. Nothing fancy here, she can simply strike with her claws. And somewhat unexpectedly, that deals 6 points of damage. Fantastic. Time for the Matriarch to waste her turn now, doing nothing. Shovel is also already done and can move back out, while Lae'zel can action surge to strike a second time, once again with a menacing attack for extra damage. "19 hit points lost this time, and you can see it, the number of debuffs on the Matriarch is starting to take up some space on screen. Let's move Lae'zel out too, and find a spot for Will to strike without stepping into the poison on the ground. His Shadow Blade connects for 20 points of damage, and before you say it, even if we hadn't gotten all that lucky with our attacks in this first round of combat, in theory we now have up to 6 more attacks with Astarion and Sylvia, although with only a single hit point remaining, I doubt we're going to need them all. Still, let's err on the side of caution and use Sylvia's bonus action to strike. If that misses, she can still shoot twice more. And there we are, we earned 250 XP and unlock the Pest Control achievement as the Phase Spider Matriarch falls. By moving our party away from her, we also avoid any poison coming out of her body as she dies, and with that we have absolutely annihilated what was without a doubt our toughest enemy of the series so far. And I want to take a moment here to perhaps pat myself on the back a little, but I have to say I am just incredibly proud of where we are with this playthrough at the moment. When I committed myself to turning Baldur's Gate 3 into a series, I thought, hey, let's play through the game on honor mode and try not to miss anything. That's probably challenging enough. And here we are in episode 12, and apart from the fight on the Nautiloid, our main party characters have not taken as much as a single point of damage yet. And again, this is honor mode. I truly cannot stress how freaking proud it makes me to see people comment that this is, in their opinion, the one true definitive best Baldur's Gate playthrough on YouTube, and I am now so committed to maintaining that no damage streak that the prep work for these videos has shot through the roof, but I simply can no longer accept anything less. I hope I'm not jinxing it by speaking about it here, but I just wanted to take a moment to mention this, because so much research and effort goes into these videos nowadays, and it makes me so proud to see the final result, so I think I've earned a short moment here to boast about it. However, that moment is over now, so let's continue. Obviously, there is loot to be had. First, a skeleton sits at the bottom of one of the stone pillars, in front of a pile of skulls. And after grabbing a quarterstaff, let us then approach the hole in the middle of the cavern.
I feel a breeze. I wonder what's down there.
And, well, we could actually find out. As you can see, jumping down is not marked as fatal, contrary to the other chasms around the area, and there is in fact something rather interesting down there. We'll leave it for later though, and instead grab the Dark Amethyst over here. This is the gemstone that opens the Necromancy of Thay, but that too we will leave for another moment in time, as I have not yet entirely made up my mind regarding a few things about the book. We can also loot the Matriarch at this point, to obtain another silk gland as well as the Poisonous Robe, a robe that boosts poison damage from spells, useful for example to enhance the Poison Spray cantrip, but not all that powerful unless you specifically center a character build around them. So, let's keep going. After looting a longbow from another skeleton, we can reassemble our team and find a hidden waypoint all the way in the back of the cave. Easy access should we ever need to come back here, perhaps to delve deeper into that hole in the ground. For now though, we use the waypoint to exit the Whispering Depths. Any areas not yet fully explored on the map here have no loot in them, and so we can return to the Blighted Village.
As I hope for Baldur's Gate, These frontiers delight me as much as any bustling street.
You can't be serious. This is a howling wasteland. I haven't even had a bath since the abduction. I must reek of illicit slime.
Sure, but think of the stories you'll be able to tell.
After a short conversation between Will and Astarion, we can then return to camp, and since none of our party members have anything new to say to us at this point, let us go ahead and take a long rest to end the day.
You don't sleep well, flitting between dreams and nightmares. Maybe you wake up because you know something is wrong, or maybe you just get lucky.
Shit. No, it's not what it looks like. I swear. I wasn't going to hurt you. I just needed, well, blood.
There, in the dim firelight, you see him for what he really is. A vampire, a slave to sanguine hunger.
Right, so the worst kept secret in the game is finally out. Astarion is a vampire. And since we don't want to drive a stake into his heart just yet, let's use the first dialogue option here, unlocked after finding that dead boar he was behaving so weirdly about.
It's not what you think. I'm not some monster. I feed on animals, boars, deer, kobolds, whatever I can get. I'm just too slow right now. Too weak. If I just had a little blood, I could think clearer, fight better. Please.
A strange sensation courses through you, and your companion's mind unfolds, secrets half revealed.
Now, unfortunately, we have already used our illicit powers on the goblin by the windmill earlier, and we also don't want to reject his offer outright, which leaves us only with the question why he didn't tell us.
At best, I was sure you'd say no. More likely, you'd ram a stake through my ribs. No. I needed you to trust me. And you can trust me.
Now, at this point, the conversation becomes a deciding factor in Astarion's approval for the early to mid-game. Obviously, we don't want to kick him out of the party, so let's begin by earning 5 approval points by stating that we do in fact believe him.
Thank you. Do you think you could trust me just a little further? I only need a taste. I swear.
And this too we do not want to decline. However, we specifically want to pick the first answer here, not threatening him, to earn a massive 10-point approval bonus.
Really? Of course. Not one drop more. Let's make ourselves comfortable, shall we?
It's like a shard of ice into your neck, a quick, sharp pain that fades to throbbing numbness. Your breath catches, your pulse quickens.
Right, now letting him continue could theoretically prove fatal, so we best get him off. As a bard, a persuasion check is our best bet of achieving that. The DC here is only 5, and we already get a bonus of +7.
Oh, of course. That was amazing. My mind is finally clear. I feel strong. I feel happy.
Now, obviously, we did not go through all of this just to attack him after the fact. We are very curious, though, about what this has done to his abilities. Let's say so to finish the conversation.
Shouldn't take long. So many people need killing. Now, if you'll excuse me, you're invigorating, but I need something more filling. This is a gift, you know. I won't forget it.
You watch as he stalks towards the forest, stronger, more confident, ready to hunt.
Right, on the following morning, Sylvia wakes up bloodless, suffering a -1 penalty to pretty much all the rolls she can make, and Astarion wants to speak to us, so let's chat.
Good morning. How do you feel?
And, well, our condition is not exactly great, but let's say that we feel fine. Wouldn't want him to get a guilty conscience now, would we?
It'll pass. Just be glad I'm not a true vampire. A bite from them and you might wake up as a vampire spawn, like my good self. All of a vampire's hunger, but few of their powers.
And option number 1 here does bring up an interesting point. Astarion is standing in bright sunlight, something a true vampire should not really be capable of.
Oh no, I should be cinders in this light. I hadn't seen the sun for 200 years before we crashed here. Someone, or something, wants me alive. They've changed the rules. Standing in the sun, wading through a river, wandering into homes without an invitation. They're all perfectly mundane activities now. As for my other quirks, well, we can figure those out in time.
And of course, let's also bring the Mind Flayer parasite into this. After all, there is a decent chance it has something to do with the change in Astarion's condition.
That's my theory, but who knows? I'm just glad you're being sensible about these revelations. I was worried people might turn up with torches and pitchforks. Although there's still time.
Hunting with vampires. Never thought I'd see the day. Very well, but I'm keeping an eye on you. And no wisecracks about having us for supper.
For his sake, he best not develop an appetite for Githyanki.
Alright, the party has gotten wind of what happened, and we really have no other choice here but to defend Astarion. 5 points of approval can be gained with either of the 2 latter options, but let's perhaps not invite anyone to leave. Instead, we reaffirm our trust in Astarion in the hope that our party follows suit.
Quite the opposite. I'm here in the spirit of openness and honesty to work together as a team.
Fine. He stays till he's no longer of use. Besides, my flesh is not so easily tasted.
Unless, of course, I have offered it.
There now. We're all friends again. Shall we go? There's a long day ahead of us.
And there we go, a minor approval penalty from Will is all we suffer, and with Astarion's vampire condition revealed, a few more dialogue options have now opened up.
What can I do for you, my friend?
Let's begin by asking about his history.
Why do you insist on exhuming the past? I was a slave. A vampire spawn. Kept by the Tsar family. Perhaps I still am. I was never able to resist their commands. But now, I've been conveniently lost. They won't ever control me again.
Obviously, we also want to ask how exactly someone becomes a vampire. It is not every day that you can get an answer from a primary source, if you will.
It's simple. Just find a vampire that will drink your blood and turn you into a vampire spawn. Their obedient puppet. In theory, the next step is to drink their blood. Once you've done that, you're free. And a true vampire.
Well, in theory, sounds like there's a little caveat, so what might that be?
People think the biggest threat to a vampire is a cleric with a stake. It's not. The biggest threat to a vampire is another vampire. They're scheming, paranoid, power-hungry beasts. So why would any vampire give up control over a spawn to create a competitor? Trust me, it doesn't happen.
Now, finally, we should also revisit the topic of this nightly nibble. After all, there are likely many more nights to come.
I've already apologized. What more do you want? Unless you're looking for another nibble.
What we want to discuss now is how he will feed in the future, as this will lead us towards another option to gain approval.
No innocence. You have my word. Only villains that we need to kill anyway. After all, you know what I am now. I can fight with all my weapons, teeth included. And if I happen to drain the occasional bandit during a fight, what's the harm? They're just as dead.
Right, what we want to do here is agree unconditionally. I think it fits Sylvia's Dark Urge background, and it also earns us the final approval points of this conversation.
As am I. I'm starting to feel a little peckish already.
And there we go. With that, we can now leave and approach Will, not for a conversation though, but to remove the bloodless status effect with a lesser restoration from the amulet of Sylvanus he still wears. Then we stroll over to Gale.
How can I help?
And we ask him how he feels about a vampire in our midst.
We all have our burdens, one way or the other.
So, surprisingly unsurprised by it all. That's great to hear, I think. Let us then have one last small conversation with Shadowheart.
Lady of Sorrows, guide us. Did you want something?
Who can now tell us a bit more about the Mother Superior.
I'm not sure what else I can say, at least until I can remember more. She taught me, trained me, punished me. Often, I think I feel her influence when the wound pains me. Not even memories, just glimpses, impressions. Perhaps the wound is her doing, something Lady Shah bid her to do. I don't know.
Alright, and with a massive chunk of Astarion's and a tiny bit more of Shadowheart's backstory revealed, we can finally wrap up today's episode. In the next one, we will most likely not venture straight into the goblin camp right away. There are one or two things I would still like to do beforehand. Until then, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or become a channel member or a Patreon supporter. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.